Tarkov's latest wipe has been controversial to say the least.
What's the point? What's the point? What's the point?
Really, bro? I just got landmarked. I'm not kidding. In all the years I've played Tarkov, this has got to be the worst fucking wipe of all time. The wipe is fucking dog shit. And that's it. There's not much else to say. I'll be live tomorrow, trying again.
Based on the community's feedback in the past and in response to this wipe, Battlestate Games will likely make some changes to what 1.0 looks like. At least I hope so. In this video, I'll go over the changes I believe they will make, why, and what I think they should do for the future of Tarkov. Let's start with the changes they will make. One of the things I'm most confident in is that there will be flea market limitations of some sort. I believe that either the flea market will be fully disabled, flea market listings will be limited, or the flea market will be time gated for a month or two of the wipe. Another thing I'm confident in is that traders will be time locked to some extent, like they were this wipe. I think as a whole, the community didn't seem to mind this change, and it did work to keep most people on a level playing field to start the wipe. I think this is a good mechanic for people who don't have the time to play this game as a 9-to-5 job and only really get to play on the weekends or for a couple hours a day. I think this was a good change, and I think it should make it into 1.0. But it should be done a little differently than how it was done this wipe. When the hardcore wipe started, they not only locked trader progression, but they also locked quests. I think this was a mistake, and it left most people without a sense of purpose and direction, and it also, hurt that progression that everyone likes to feel on wipe day. Instead of getting through the first couple of starter quests, all you could do is really grind for hideout items, which isn't really engaging. I think they should keep at least some of the quests open to start the wipe, so that players have a sense of direction, things to do, items to look for, that sort of thing, and they can still lock trader levels to keep the gear even. They can even implement a partial quest rollout system that gives players something to do, but it also doesn't unlock the endgame quest and quest rewards at the beginning of the wipe. Another mechanic I see them changing for 1.0 is going to be the hideout requirements. I think it's likely that they're going to revert the hideout to how it was pre-patch 16. So no founder raid requirements and no doubled requirements. But since there's not going to be a flea market, you'll still have to find most of the items or buy them off traders via purchase or barter. Another mechanic I think they're likely to change is how the secure container works and what is restricted. I don't see them keeping the exact same as they have this wipe, but I could see some of the changes sticking. I think they're likely to keep the CMS and serve kit being allowed in the special slots, and I hope that they increase their durability back to what they used to be at 15 and 5. They should also be much more accessible, as with no flea market, they're going to be less common, and this wipe they've been like gold to me personally. I also hope they add splints back to the secure container, as it's super annoying to rebuy them after each death. And in my opinion, it just serves to make people avoid fighting more often than not. I also think painkillers should be allowed in the secure container, or if they're not, they should be much more accessible and common than they are now, especially if the uses remain the same amount. I have loyalty level 3 on every trader, and I have enough rep to get level 4 on every trader as well, and I can still only buy the Analogin painkiller for 14k rubles. If they want to keep painkillers out of the secure container, I get that. And I think they should add like an adrenaline or, I don't know, a different mechanic where if your legs get shot off, you have at least like 10 to 15 seconds to keep running on them or anything like that, because it's super annoying being not on painkillers, getting shot in the legs and being trapped in that movement. You're really vulnerable and they can just like do whatever they want with you. This is how I complete Grenadier every wipe. I just shoot people in the legs and they can't really do anything if they're not on painkillers. It's kind of frustrating to play against, and I'm sure newer players hate it when it happens to them. Another change I think could stick is the not allowing ammo in the secure container. I think it creates a good risk reward for PvP, where to have an advantage, you really have to take some risk and be willing to lose high-end ammo. On the flip side of this, it also means when you win a fight, you're going to gain, better ammo, and it's going to be worthwhile to get in engagements and take their gear. So in terms of some non-balancing changes that I think they've kind of leaked and that have been rumored at, I think we're going to see definitely Terminal come to Tarkov. We're going to see traders maybe in raid, and then we're also going to see a change to the storyline and hopefully the gameplay loop. So the main thing that we really know about 1.0 is that we're definitely getting Terminal, and it's going to be the last map in Tarkov. It's going to be how you escape from Tarkov in the storyline. I think Terminal is going to work similarly to the Labyrinth, where you're going to have to complete some sort of quest line to get access to the Terminal, and it's also going to be transit only, similar to how the Labyrinth is on Shoreline. I think transit to Terminal will also be on Shoreline as well. So Shoreline's getting, these two massive transits that are going to be a big part of the game and its lore. Apparently Terminal will also be solo only, or at least that's what BSG has hinted at. Although I could only find mention of this on the EFT Reddit, so take that with a grain of salt. Another rumor is that Terminal AI will be less hostile to bear PMCs, similar to how USECs have a slightly easier time on Lighthouse. I think that these would be cool changes. My only concern is that Terminal could be a pretty boring map if it's just a PvE map. Maybe there's going to be some sort of boss mechanic like the Labyrinth, or it's really just going to be a map where you go in and you're leaving the Tarkov map for good. Another mechanic that BSG and Nikita personally have hinted at is that we might see traders in raid, and you might have to travel to them to complete your tasks and turn in items. I'm honestly kind of against this if it works anything like Lightkeeper. Lightkeeper's tasks are already hard enough as is, and on top of that, you have to travel to the lighthouse in order to complete them and get your new tasks. So I just can't imagine doing this for every single quest and every single trader. This would be super boring and tedious and kind of just monotonous, not really a fun gameplay loop. Not to mention the fact that these traders will be camped like crazy by players who want to be the next stank rat or whatever. So I just don't see how this is really fun. It would be cool if you had to visit each trader once to unlock them, but I think anything more than that turns questing into an even more monotonous and just incredibly boring activity than it already can be. In terms of storyline and gameplay loop, I think BSG is going to do a pretty extensive quest overhaul for 1.0, and I think the quests will be much more flushed out and tie into each other as you play the game. My main hope is that they take a look at the gameplay loop, as right now you can grind for Kappa and Prestige, but it's really grindy to the fact that it's like working a full-time job, and I mean it's a minority of a player base that gets to even experience these things. Don't get me wrong, Prestige has been a positive addition to the game for sure. I just think it should be reworked in some slight way. If I'm a newer player getting Kappa for the first time, I want to keep it. I want to play with it for a while and experience what it's like to have Kappa. This is where I think you could change the prestige system and kind of rework it to some extent. Imagine if the first time you prestige in a wipe, you could keep your Kappa on your future prestiges. To get your second and third and fourth prestige, you still have to do a majority of the quest lines, just not all of them. To get your second and third prestiges, you still have to do the big quest lines like the Huntsman Path, Tarkov Shooter, Shooter Born in Heaven, but you don't have to do the tedious quests like Dragnet or Terror Group Employee, all of these kind of one-off tasks that kind of serve to just slow down progression and make sure you have this stupid key that you don't really need. I think that this would encourage players to prestige, and it would keep the wipe super active when, for the most part, players' activity falls off after the first few months. For me, after reaching Prestige 2 last wipe, I didn't really play much at all. There was no progress to play for. I didn't really see a point in getting more rubles or anything like that. I think this rework would drastically increase player activity and the replayability of Tarkov. In addition to these changes, Nikita and Battlestate Games have also teased some cosmetics they plan on adding. I think the majority of these cosmetics will be on the next Battle Pass, and that'll be tied to Arena in some sort of way because they're really trying to push the sales of Arena. I still think they're trying to recoup a lot of the money that they poured into Arena, so putting the Battle Pass on Arena makes sense from that point of view, and it continues the trend of them really trying to push the sales of that game. To end this video, I also want to share a few things that I think they should add. I don't expect everyone to agree with me, so if you disagree or have some other ideas on what they should add, comment down below. The first thing I think they should change is the weight system. I already know this is going to be super controversial and I'm going to get a ton of hate comments, but this game isn't about realism. If you want to say it's about realism, then go break your leg and, pop an ibuprofen and see if you can run on it. I don't really get that argument. I never really have. As it currently works, you're punished heavily by winning a fight at the beginning of the raid, and all you want to do is extract because you're slightly overweight, your footsteps are louder than ever, and people know exactly where you are because of that. In addition to that, you have no stamina, so you can't even move around the map. You can't even get to extract without dropping your backpack or just army crawling. I don't even want to get into inertia, but I'm just going to say that Scavs had no inertia, and that if PMCs have it, they should have it too. At the end of the day, Tarkov is meant to be fun. It's a video game, and there's a reason people look back on the pre-weight system Tarkov fondly. It was fun. It feels like so many of the recent updates have been aimed at making the game harder and less fun and, less engaging for the player. And it's kind of discouraging to see that ahead of 1.0. Another change I think they can make is making raids more interactive. I have a couple ideas on how to do this. My first idea is to add a random chance that bosses spawn in the last, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes of the raid to make it so boss farmers don't immediately sprint throughout the map and just leave if the boss isn't up, and that there's a reason to play out each raid. This would make each Tarkov raid really different, and it would feel like there's a story being told every single raid, and it's not just like, oh, I hear Sherman, I'm gonna run to the sawmill. That you could show up really late and there could be some like noise or event that happens and he shows up with his guards. It would be really cool, and I think that'd be really exciting to see. Another idea I have is to increase the rate of airdrops, or how much loot is in an airdrop. They recently upped the spawn rate of airdrops, but it's still pretty rare and the loot isn't even that good when you get an airdrop. In addition, there's also like maybe 1 to 2 spots on each map that are really worth fighting for and that have like insane loot worth going for. Other than that, each map is kind of devoid of loot. There's maybe, one hotspot, one keyed room that is worth like sprinting towards the beginning of the raid. But as it is right now, there's really nothing to loot. This is a looter shooter, like extraction shooter. So why don't we add more loot back into the game? My last idea is kind of a small change, and it could be in effect right now as it is. I don't really have a in-depth understanding of the XP system, but I would say change the XP to promote fighting and surviving longer into raids. So for example, surviving 10 to 15 minutes could be like a 1 multiplier. 16 to 25 minutes could be a 1.15 XP multiplier. 26 to 35, 1.3. 36 to 45 could be a 1.4 XP multiplier. That kind of just keeps people in raids longer and incentivizes like doing things in the raid, but also surviving and making it out at the end of the raid. My goal with these suggestions is to make raids feel more active and people more likely to engage in PvP. That's not for everyone, and I totally get that, but to me, Tarkov isn't just a survival game like DayZ. It's also about, fighting other players, finding loot, and ultimately, yes, surviving at the end of the raid. But those things kind of come first to me. And that's what I really remember when I have a great time playing Tarkov. When I look back on, oh, this clip, I had such a good time because I killed these 3 players and I survived and I made it out with this gear. You guys or the community as a whole might want this game to be more survival oriented, and that's totally fair. And I totally get that if Battlestate takes the game in that direction. But these are just my thoughts, and I totally understand that some people want this to be a survival game. So real quick, my thoughts on when Tarkov is actually going to wipe and where we're going to see 1.0. So Battlestate Games has released their upcoming marketing tour for the rest of 2025. And their last event on this tour is from November 12th to the 16th in South Korea. This is their final marketing push ahead of 1.0. So I don't see how we get a wipe in, while all this is going on. I also, just to be blunt, I don't think they're ready for 1.0. And I'm kind of expecting a December release, likely mid to late December, so they can stick to their 2025 promise that they made, but they also have as much time as possible to get the game ready for release. Real quick, if you're still watching this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me out, and apparently 97.7% of you guys are not subscribed. So hit that button for me. Also, check out my latest video on sniping in Tarkov. And if you want to watch me play or just chat about the future of Tarkov, I'll be live when this video drops on Twitch. It'll be the first link in the description.